anyone else's list that has said anything other than our top 10, they're wrong and they need to correct it immediately.
Welcome to the Random Onion.
So what we're doing today is we've decided to do our first top 10 lists. And our top 10 lists are going to be different than a lot of other people's because I think a lot of other people would argue about just creating a single top 10 list. We each have our own.
Yeah. So for this list in particular, we are going to be recording our top 10 favorite scary movies. Not the top 10 scary movies, not the top 10 best scary movies. Our personal top 10 favorite scary movies. It's our favorites. Subjective.
Which are subjectively better than your favorites.
You know how many people you just pissed off in the comments? All of them.
I enjoy pissing people off in the comments.
Please remember to like and subscribe and, create your own list. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, let's say create your own list. In the comments, in fact, create an entire list of top 10 horror movies.
Yeah, let's see what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
What everyone's favorites are.
Absolutely. Without revealing what your numbers are yet, how exactly did you come up with? What were some of the criteria that you used to come up with your top 10?
A lot of mine, like I said, it's a subjective list. It's based on what horror movies I like. I like the most, the style of horror movies I like, or horror movies that I associate with memories that make me feel good. I guess that's one way to. Yeah. That's one way I can describe it. Yeah, like I said, this whole list is subjective.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
So So when I was thinking of a top 10 scary movie list, I had some movies on my list that I had to rule out because they're not actual horror or scary movies.
Yeah.
They were more thrillers or so on and so forth. I had to narrow it down to what movies had I watched that I still remember today that have had something happen that has stuck with me. Yeah. So these are not necessarily going to be the scariest movies ever made. They're not necessarily going to be the most popular movies ever made for mine. But there's something about each one of these movies that has stuck with me and throughout my life, and that's why they made it onto this list.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that.
Yes.
Also, in my list, I've got 2 entries on here that are two movies technically. One of them is an original and a remake, because I love both of them. I adore both of them. The other is the first movie and its follow-up sequel because it goes straight into the sequel from the first movie. Yeah, let's get to it.
Number 10.
Fight. That's Mortal Kombat, guys. We're not.
My number 10 is The Grudge.
The Grudge.
Yes.
For those of you who have heard my story about The Grudge.
Yes. My number 10 is The Grudge because this is a movie that I watched when I was I was in my teens when I watched it. But it's something that I've always remembered. It's a movie that I've always had stuck in my head. I made little sentences like you used to do for your for each of these movies. I'm going to read out what I wrote. I said, for The Grudge, a fun movie I watched when I was younger that I definitely will never forget, but it relies too heavily on jump scares, but it's still a fun watch.
Yeah,
so
I did watch The Grudge a few years ago. I'm not going to tell the story of what happened with me in The Grudge again because I'm still mad that Godzilla is not in that movie.
Link here to hear that story.
Yeah, so, to my cousins who told me that Godzilla was in that movie, fuck off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's an interesting choice.
Like I said, it's probably not going to be the most popular because I did watch it recently in order to get ready for this, which was a pain in the ass to actually get to watch it because it's not available on Amazon, and I ended up having to. I think I watched it on Paramount Plus or something. It's on there. But yes, that movie relies way too heavily on jump scares.
I can remember.
And I'm at a point in my life where I hate jump scares.
The movie I chose for my number 10 is definitely not a good movie at all. The reason I put this at my number 10 spot is because when this movie came out, it was chaotic at the theaters. Okay. If you can kind of remember, it was in I think the early 2010s. The previews were all people freaking out in the theaters. It was like, in my middle school brain, it was supposed to be like the shit for scariest movies ever.
Okay.
And when I watched it, I really enjoyed it back then. And I still enjoy the movie, but I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's not a great movie.
Okay.
That movie, for my number 10, is Paranormal Activity, the first one.
Oh.
Yeah.
I remember I actually played with Paranormal Activity to be on my list, but I ended up not.
Yeah, no, I enjoy the first 3 of those movies. The rest of them are just god awful. It's not a great movie, but I do have good memories associated with this movie, and that is why it is at number 10 on my list.
I remember that movie. They really tried to advertise it like this was a real found footage, that they just cobbled together a found footage thing and tried to make it look like it wasn't state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the marketing was genius. You got a bunch of actors who were complete unknowns, and it worked. For its time, it worked, and I will give credit where credit is due. Is the movie good? That's debatable, but it worked for the time.
Yeah. I just had to finger my tablet like a Decepticon.
You beat me by 1 second.
Number 9. All right, number 9 is a movie that it's like I said, it's every one of these movies is something that's really stuck with me. But this one, it stuck with me because of the ending more than anything else in the entire movie, and that is The Mist.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good one.
The ending of that, because I also just recently watched this movie recently. The ending of that movie, granted, logically makes no sense. Right. The fact that they committed to that ending, which you've definitely seen it, so you know how it ends.
Yes.
I'm gonna put a spoiler here because I really want people to watch that movie to get to that ending.
Spoiler alert! Right here, if you don't want it to miss spoiled for you,
jump to this timestamp. So at the ending of that movie, after they've gotten out of the after they've gotten out of the grocery store and they're trying to escape in their fucking Land Cruiser, after seeing like giant monsters and stuff, they have 5 people in the car. The car runs out of gas, and they have a gun with 4 bullets in it. The main character, his son, this lady he found, and this old couple. The main character puts a bullet in the head of all 4 other people, and then gets out of the car to let himself be taken by the monsters. And that's when the military shows up. And all the people from the grocery store have been saved. And they're in this military truck. As well as watching it recently, I realized early in the movie there's this lady that cries out for someone to help her to go get her kids because her kids are on their own. She's on that truck too.
Yeah.
She survived. I didn't realize that until I watched this recently.
Yeah, no, that is a good movie. It really is. The ending, I didn't like the ending when it first came out, but it is disturbing.
Yes.
And it works
that
for the shock factor, if anything.
Oh yeah, that movie will haunt you. My wife refused to watch it because she watched it before and knew how it ended.
Yeah.
It's spoiler ended. But no, the last thing I'll say about the movie is the CGI does not hold up on the monsters.
Yeah,
it looks good when they're covered by the mist, but that's because you can't see them. Any up close shots of the monsters are really freaking bad.
Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't seen that movie in a few years.
Yeah.
So for my number 9, I chose this movie because it is like legit. The more I think about this movie, the more I watch this movie, the more I enjoy this movie. Mm-hmm. It's not quite up there with a lot of my other movies. But this turned out to be a damn good movie, and unexpectedly turned out to be a damn good movie. And you might have this movie on your list too. I'm not sure. This movie is Underwater.
Ah, yeah. Underwater. Yeah.
I really, really enjoy this movie. I enjoy the tone. I enjoy the monsters. The creatures look great, and them, sticking with the pressure thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying. Really, really like this movie because I'm a huge Cthulhu fan.
Yeah. And
the very end of this movie, for those of you who don't know, the director confirmed that the big monster at the end of this movie is indeed Mr. Hentai himself, Cthulhu.
Mr. Giant Hentai Monster.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that movie too. the fact that they stick so heavily with the science, because it's hard science fiction. That's it. That's what the movie is. But then they're also like, let's put some fucking H.G. Wells.
Right.
Is it H.G. Wells? Am I getting that right?
H.P. Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft. Let's put some Lovecraftian monsters in that too.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Now, the only complaint I have about that movie is the acting for the main character is really, really flat. Other than that, all the other characters are great. Everyone else is great in the movie. It's just the main girl. And what's her name? Kristen Stewart?
I can't remember.
It's the girl from Twilight, whoever she is. But, I mean, she's fine in the movie. It's just, she just seems kind of bored for a lot of it.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Go watch it.
Go watch it. Seriously, actually, Underwater is an unknown classic. There's a guy I work with that it's going to be a future classic, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
But there's a guy that I worked with that he was asking me about what a good horror movie would be, and the first thing I said was Underwater. Because
fantastic movie. I love it.
Do you want to do it?
You do it. You're better at it than me. I sound like a 12-year-old.
Number 8.
I said 12-year-old. He said, I'm going to be an 8-year-old.
All right, number 8. This is a movie I'm curious if you've even seen it, because I feel like it's not a very well-known movie, but it's also, I think it might even be, I should look it up to see what made it, but I think it might even be a Blumhouse.
Oh, shit.
This is Oculus. Is my number 8.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Okay. I actually think it's a really good ghost movie. The fun thing about it is I put this little note here for this movie, and it's a very short note. It says, it's 2 unreliable narrators trying to stop a potentially haunted mirror with logic.
Oh, I do know that movie. Yes.
Yeah.
The ending of that movie, holy shit.
Yeah. That was a movie I watched during a time with me and my wife were going every Halloween. We try to watch as many horror movies as possible, or every October. And this was during a time where I got off early enough that we could watch a horror movie almost every night. So we were just trying to find some kind of horror movie to watch every single night, which does surprising things to your psyche after a month of doing that.
Oh yeah.
But that movie, I remember, it's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's 2 unreliable narrators trying to stop a haunted mirror with logic, and I'm trying to think of what's going to happen with that.
Right. I remember that movie, and I only remember that movie because of its ending.
Yeah.
And it was a real what the fuck moment for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. This movie that I have at number 8 is a remake. And this movie, it's a horror movie, but it's got a lot of like kind of funny parts to it, but it's not a horror comedy. It definitely leans more into the horror than the comedy. But I do think I am going to get a lot of hate for choosing the remake over the original, even though I haven't seen the original, and that's why I chose the remake. This movie, for my number 8, I chose the Fright Night remake. Came out in 2011, had Colin Farrell in it as the main vampire.
I don't know if I've ever even heard of it.
Yeah. I really, really enjoy the movie, and I really, really enjoy Colin Farrell's performance in that movie. He is fantastic as Jerry.
Okay.
And it's like, if I could recommend you go see that movie, it would solely be for his performance, because he steals every scene he's in. Special effects didn't really hold up. Another standout in that movie is David Tennant. He is kind of funny in that movie. Mm-hmm. He plays like this stage magician who his TV show, because the movie takes place in Vegas. Okay. And he's got like a TV show where he like kills vampires in the TV show. The main character keeps trying to go to him for advice, and he's like basically telling him to fuck off. But you find out later in the movie that David Tennant's character, he has actually encountered the vampires before, and as it turns out, he encountered the exact same vampire that the main character is dealing with.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it is a very good movie. It's very funny. It's good. I would highly recommend it.
I can say nothing because I'd never even heard of it. Yeah. So, and I will say I am actually really bad at a lot of movies. So there's a lot of movies I haven't seen. That might be surprising considering we're trying to start a YouTube channel where we talk about movies. Right. Number 7. Got a little Hulk Hogan there. All right, number 7. This is actually, I think, the only indie horror movie I put on my list, which I didn't realize it was an indie horror movie, but it's one that I watched when I was younger because my best friend at the time showed it to me because he, for some reason, loved showing me movies that trying to scare me. So this movie, it was an indie director. I think the director's gone on to do some other stuff. It has some surprising actors in it. General Zod is in it.
Michael Shannon?
Yes. And we actually watched it last night to get ready for this, and me and my wife are both looking at him like, who the hell is that guy? We know him from something, but no, he's General Zod.
I will find him.
But this movie is called Dead Birds.
Dead Birds. I've never heard of that one.
You've never heard of it?
No.
I said it's an indie horror movie. The hook of this movie is it's a Western. It's an old-fashioned Western movie that they get trapped in a haunted house or a haunted farmhouse.
Oh.
The premise of the movie is it takes place during the Civil War, and there's some bandits that they're actually military deserters. And they have a freed slave with them. And they rob a bank, and they take the money they get from the bank. They try to get away, and they end up hiding out in this farmhouse that they don't realize is haunted. And they should realize it's haunted. Watching the movie again made me realize I think the characters are seeing something different than what the audience is seeing. Because literally within 15 minutes of the movie, there's a skinless dog-human hybrid that runs out of a cornfield and they shoot it. And they're just like, I think it might be a pig. I'll have to show you some clips of that movie.
There's another clip we should show.
This movie scared the hell out of me when I watched it when I was younger. I watched when I was young because my best friend showed it to me. It's something that stuck with me and has a few scenes that I'll never forget. Although the movie really does take the cake for jump scares from The Grudge. They do more jump scares than The Grudge.
Yeah.
Also, the CGI is really bad in it, with the exception of one particular scene that's stuck in my head where there's a lady on the ground that has someone invisible cut her stomach open and rip her entrails out.
Holy shit. Impressive.
It has a lot of body horror in it. Well, that would be a movie I would recommend you watch.
My number 7 is one that you actually haven't seen, and I know you haven't seen it, but I know you've been thinking about watching it because you hear a lot of people talk about it.
Okay.
I first saw this movie, admittedly, on the Sci-Fi Channel, which is weird, because it's actually a very good movie. I remember hearing about it when it came out. This movie is The Descent.
Ah, yes. That movie was potentially going to be on my list because I keep hearing that it's good, but I hadn't seen it. But then I didn't watch it before we did this. So
yeah, no. Basically, the premise of the movie is these, I think they're 5 or 6 girls. They decide to go spelunking.
Yeah. And
they go to a cave that's been really, really unexplored, and they get trapped in said cave with a bunch of humanoid creatures.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to really say about the plot, because you can't really get more into it without spoiling it. But holy crap, this movie is tense.
Yeah.
I can remember it being really, really tense. I don't remember if the special effects are great or not because I haven't seen it in a while. It's a damn good movie as far as horror movies go. And
I really need to watch it. I've been wanting to watch it. It's probably going to be this year that I finally do watch it.
Yeah, no,
but,
great movie. A lot of really good stuff in it.
I'm sure you know this, but because I actually recently listened to an interview of people talking about it with the director, that it's the same guy who did Dog Soldiers. The same director, which is another movie you've told me to watch that I still haven't.
Love Dog Soldiers. Love Dog Soldiers a lot. Yeah.
I need to watch that movie. Number 6. Wasn't much fanfare on that one.
Let's go!
Don't say let's go. I hate that.
Oh, yeah!
All right, so my number 6 is a movie we've already talked about. This is where I put Underwater. That movie, like we've already said, that's a lot. It's a very fun sci-fi movie, or a hard sci-fi movie. It's got Cthulhu in it. It's got logical science in it. It's got all kinds of awesome stuff. As we were saying, the main character probably isn't the most notable portrayal. My favorite character in the movie is actually the captain.
Mine too.
Yes, he's real. I love him.
He goes out like a boss.
Yeah. So that's 2. Like I put that higher on the list than he did. So that movie definitely you should watch because both of us put it on our top 10 list.
All right, so this one's a 2-parter for me. This is the first 2-parter. These movies, and I put them like this because like one story follows directly after the other. They actually were made in Spain, and I'm sure me just saying that, if you guys are listening, probably know exactly what I'm talking about. They did an American remake called Quarantine. These movies are called Wreck and then Wreck 2. And the premise of these movies is a reporter follows they're doing like a ride along with this fire department. They go into a building, they're responding to like some type of medical call.
Okay.
And where they heard this like lady screaming and whatnot. There's some cops there. They show up as like the news reporters are recording them. The lady actually attacks, I think it's one of the cops, and bites him.
Okay.
And so throughout this movie, they're suddenly quarantined inside the building. They can't leave because there's some type of airborne pathogen going around, or not an airborne pathogen, but there's some type of like virus going around the building. It's a really good movie. The version from Spain is way better than the American remake.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
The original version.
It's also like, because Quarantine, I liked Quarantine when it came out. I actually saw Quarantine first. But then I watched Wreck, the first Wreck, and it's so much better. And it really made me mad whenever I was thinking about Quarantine because they changed what causes the virus in Quarantine.
Okay.
In Quarantine, it's more of a scientific virus. And in Wreck, it's actually like a supernatural demonic pathogen almost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because the zombies in it are definitely they're definitely more possessed people than they are zombies.
Yeah.
It is very, very entertaining, and as soon as the first one ends, the second one starts, and the second one is about a SWAT team that follows them into the building to try to see what, and that's where it gets like real interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I highly recommend these movies. They are very tense. There's a lot of jump scares in the first one, and I think the second one too, but it's been a few months since I watched it. But oh my god, they're really good.
Jump scares are okay in moderation, but the problem is a lot of movies really overdo.
Yeah.
It's the only trick that they have.
These ones have some, because they're all found footage.
Okay.
They have some really good ones.
So does that mean your number 6 is both of those movies combined?
Yes, both of those movies.
Okay. That's cool. We get to make the rules of our own list, so.
Yeah.
We are now entering the top 5. This is actually the part of the list that I had the most trouble with, was the top 5. For 10 through 6, I basically knew where they were all going to end up. But through 5 through number 1, I was going back and forth on it. I did have a very strong contender for number 1 for me. But I had to move them around and think about these individually.
I had 2 movies for number 1 or 3. My top 3 were the hardest for me.
So my number 5 is a horror classic. We recently did a reaction to the trailer of the most recent one.
Oh, okay.
My number 5 is the original Exorcist. That movie, I didn't watch it for a very long time. I finally did watch it a few years back. And it is legitimately a scary-ass movie until a certain point. And that's why I couldn't put it any higher than number 5.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain point in that movie, and it's when the exorcism is actually happening, that it lost me. And it never regained me. Everything up to that point, which surprisingly is there's a lot of stuff before that actually happens. But everything up to that point is really legitimately scary, horrifying. But then once that gets to that point, I'm like, I can't go any further.
Yeah, I mean, I already told you my dad's story behind that movie. And for those of you who don't know, my dad is like ex-military. He was a cop for 14 years. There's not a lot that bothers him, but The Exorcist legitimately scared him when he was growing up. Yeah. And he still refuses to watch that movie.
I think you should watch it.
I haven't seen the movie personally. I know what happens in it. I'm probably going to watch it sometime soon, probably this month at some point. It's a bunch of other movies because I need to have a horror movie day just to get it off my chest and then get off. That
movie is very much worth watching. I didn't think, honestly, before I watched it, I was like, this is like kind of an old movie. It's a horror classic. People talk about it. I'm like, nah, it's not gonna be. Then I watched it. I'm like, this is actually really freaking good. It's very good. Highly recommend it.
I don't know. Scary Movie 2 spoof of it is pretty funny too.
Yeah.
She's like, your mother suck in hell. Suck on this. Uh-oh.
Thy kingdom come.
Your mother sucks in hell.
Suck on this.
Uh-oh.
They got James Woods.
There's a part in the first movie where I think it's the first movie where they're talking about it's what's her face? Oh my god. The main girl, whatever her name
Anna
is.
Faris?
Anna Faris. And her boyfriend in the first movie that's always trying to get with her, but she has like, she never lets him do it until later in the movie. He says something to her in The Exorcist. And
Yeah,
he says,
that was...
is this about the time that I puked green slime and masturbated with a crucifix?
Yeah.
It was my first keg party, Bobby.
I remember that. Oh, that was bad.
You should watch those movies too because they're very...
They're hilarious. They're awful.
They are awful.
They're hilariously awful. For my number 5, this is actually the newest movie I have on my list.
Okay.
It actually came out this year. I've been telling you to watch this movie for the past few months too, because I went into this movie not thinking I would like it. And I will give credit to where it's due. It doesn't take a lot to, it takes a lot to really, really disturb me and make me feel like I shouldn't be watching this.
Okay.
And it's not like a fear feeling I feel whenever I watch scary movies, but this movie had me legitimately feeling like maybe I shouldn't be watching this. There's just like an uneasy feeling I got watching this movie.
Okay.
And it's weird though because like the movie made me laugh a lot too, but I don't know if it's maybe like the subject matter and coming from like a super religious family, but I really, really enjoyed this movie. And this movie is Evil Dead Rise.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
I have not watched... Well, I take it back. I have watched one thing of The Evil Dead, and that was the first episode of Ash versus the Evil Dead TV show.
Weirdly funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird, though, because I'm a big fan of the Evil Dead franchise.
Mhm.
That being said, I like the newer movies better than the older movies. And I'm like one of the only people who does. Because
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of Evil Dead 1 and 2 or Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's unfortunate because, you know, I know they're supposed to be horror classics. I know Ash Williams is like a classic horror character. It's just, they're really, really campy. And I don't do really, really campy, campy slapstick horror.
Yeah.
But Evil Dead Rise is a fucking good movie. I was very impressed by it.
Okay. I should watch it. Do I have to watch any of the other stuff to understand it?
No, I don't. Not really.
Okay. I remember watching the first episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and I think someone gets eaten by a tree or something.
Maybe, I don't remember.
I remember it being gory, and I remember hearing that it was okay. But, yeah.
Special effects aren't great in Ash vs. Evil Dead.
No. Special effects are very important to the last parts of my list here.
Yeah, mine too.
So, number 4. I'm wondering if you even thought about this movie for my number 4, if you've even thought about it for the list. Because I actually had to remember it, because I've seen it once, and it is another horror classic. It is An American Werewolf in London.
I've heard of it. I've only seen bits and pieces, unfortunately.
It's more of a horror comedy, kind of like Evil Dead. There's definitely some comedic bits to it. But that movie, it's second only to one other movie for practical effects, in my opinion. Because the practical effects of him transforming into the wolf are insanely well done.
Who's the main actor in that one?
I honestly can't tell you.
I've seen the practical effects in it. I know that they are very, very good. And I've heard a lot about that. I haven't seen that movie, regrettably. I really probably should watch it. The one I saw was American Werewolf in Paris.
Yes, that is that is the remake. John Landis? I don't know. But yeah, the transformation scenes in this movie of him transforming into the wolf are insanely well done, and it's all practical.
Yeah.
There's no CGI. This movie was released in 1981.
Yeah, practical effects are the best for horror movies.
Yeah, especially when they're done properly. I've actually recently listened to a short video where they were explaining how they did some of the practical effects. Like the way he grows the hair is that they had a rubber piece of skin that they actually pushed hair through, and then or they pushed hair into it and then pulled it through and then reversed the footage to make it look like it was coming out. Yeah, they did some crazy stuff to make him transforming into the wolf. The fun thing about that movie too is you barely see the wolf. You see a couple shots of its face as it's walking through London, and then there's one shot where it's at the bottom of the London Underground. You see it walking into frame at the bottom of stairs, and it's really well done. The movie's a lot of fun to watch. And it has a lot of interesting world building as well with werewolves and stuff.
All right, I definitely need to check that one out.
Yeah,
I always forget that movie exists, but
that's why I was saying I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought that you probably wouldn't even think of this movie.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so speaking.
No, it's not your turn yet.
Oh.
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Speaking of barely seeing the monster, my number 4 movie, and I've said this several times throughout the list. Also happens to be my favorite movie of all time. That being said, it is not my favorite horror movie of all time, which I don't know if that's going to make sense to y'all, but you know what? It's our list. We can do what we want.
Exactly.
But this movie is, like I said, one of my favorite movies of all time, one of my favorite shark movies of all time. For number 4, I went with Jaws.
Jaws. Yes.
And I can't tell you enough how much I love this movie, how great of a movie I think it is. The shark, it makes you second guess going into the water.
Yeah, it does.
And it does it perfectly. It's the original summer blockbuster. I mean, I can't really say much that hasn't been said already.
In fact, we have an entire video right here.
Yeah.
Where we talk about that movie. But yeah, Jaws is another one of those horror cult, not even a cult classic, it's just a classic.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of those horror classics. And I think a lot of our movies are ending up being like that right now.
Right.
For the higher parts of our list. This is the top 3. My number 3. This was one I really fought in my head if I was going to make it number 3 or number 2. I knew it wasn't going to be number 1 because I have a very particular thing I don't like about it. But it is The Thing.
The Thing.
Yes, the original Thing, or is it the original? I don't know. The one everyone thinks about.
Yeah.
What do you think of The Thing?
Kurt Russell, great cast.
Yes, that movie is, like I said, American Werewolf in London is second only to The Thing. As in my mind, as far as practical effects goes,
Right?
Because that movie, they went way beyond to make those practical effects work. One of my favorite little things that I've heard about that movie is that there's a scene where someone gets both their arms bitten off in someone's chest, and they actually hired a double amputee to play him after his arms get bit off, so it would make it look more real.
Yeah.
But the thing I don't like about The Thing, and the reason why it ended up being number 3, is because towards the end of the movie, when there's the final climactic fight against The Thing, it looks awful. I hate the way it looks. It's so good for the rest of the movie, but its like final form that it takes looks terrible. I don't like it at all. Other than that, like, the question at the end of the movie is if the Thing is even defeated or not, if someone's been taken over by it. That stuff is cool.
100%.
But the final fight.
It's Child's.
Yeah.
It is 100%. He's wearing different clothes at the end of that.
Yeah.
I'll get into that here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. For my number 3, this is my other two-parter. When you think of a zombie movie, what is the first movie you think of?
I can't answer that yet.
Really?
Yes.
Everyone's classics, or everyone's favorite classic zombie movie is always going to be either like Night of the Dead, Day of the Dead, or Dawn of the Dead. Mm-hmm. The original Dawn of the Dead movie is one of the best horror movies I've ever seen.
Okay.
The special effects are a little dated.
Oh,
but it came out in the 70s.
Yeah.
But it is still hands down one of the greatest horror movies I've ever seen.
Okay.
Not my favorite, but still one of the greatest.
Yeah.
Which is weird thinking about it got a remake. I do believe admittedly, the remake isn't as good, but it's still pretty fucking good in my opinion.
I'll be honest, I've actually only seen the remake. I've never seen the original.
I really enjoyed both movies. There's like
Wasn't it Zack Snyder that directed it too?
Zack Snyder directed it, and
Yeah.
James Gunn wrote it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Great. Both of them
Yeah.
are just great movies, and they're great in their own way. And that's why I put them in this exact same spot at number 3. Yeah.
So we can make our own rules. So,
And that is all I have to say about that.
number. 2, 2, 2, 2. Echo. The number 2 is one that.
Let me take a wild guess before you say what it is. Is it The Ritual?
Yes.
Yes.
It is The Ritual. I think it's still a Netflix movie. I don't know. I know it came out originally on Netflix. It's the first movie I watched in a very long time that really haunted me because there's a lot of existential horror in it.
Right.
And it doesn't. It also helps that the monster in the movie is very creative and very spooky, and also still looks really good.
Yeah.
It's a very well-designed monster.
Yeah, that, and I think what helps that movie is they pull the monster out of Norse mythology, which is something you really don't ever see.
Yes, it is. Like we've recently discussed, it's Loki's. It's one of Loki's kids, basically. Right. It's all about a group of friends who basically one of them really really thinks that he got one of their friends killed, and so in order to honor his memory, they go off into the woods, which is the last thing that he wanted to do was go on a hike before he died. But then he died, and then he couldn't go on the hike, so they went on the hike without him, just to honor his memory, and then they end up in this psychological horror.
They went on the wrong hike.
They definitely went on the wrong hike. But I highly recommend that movie. That probably is one of my favorite psychological horrors.
Movie, and I know it because of I don't know if it's Film Comics Explained or it's the guy who explains horror movies. We'll link him if I can find the link. Yeah. But yeah, that's how I know what happens in that movie. And I will admit, like just watching what he showed on that, it looked like it was a very good horror movie. It looked like it was a very creepy horror movie.
Yes.
But yeah, that is definitely one I intend to check out.
Yes. Highly recommend it. That one almost made number 1.
For my number 2, and I've told Adam to watch this movie about 1 million times over the past 4 years, and he still hasn't done it.
Probably not.
I love this movie, and this movie has become a cult classic. This movie is Dog Soldiers.
Yes.
Which is about a British military unit that's sent on a training exercise who end up basically having to fight for their lives when a bunch of werewolves show up. The plot is it's super simple. It's very, very well executed. Special effects are all practical with the werewolves. It's great. I love the movie.
Yeah. I need to watch it. It actually sounds like something that I would really enjoy watching. Yeah. I just haven't watched it.
Yeah. See, I love it. I've been watching that movie once every year since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
The only complaint I have at all is during one of the transformation scenes they use these contacts that you can tell are contacts. That is the only complaint I have about the movie.
Okay.
The werewolves in that movie, they have this weird presence in the movie to where it's every time you see them, you know something bad is about to happen. No one is safe. It's just a good movie. I highly recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, I really need to watch it. Maybe this month. Number 1. These are both simultaneously the best movies that have ever been made that are horror, and they are absolutely the best, and because our opinions are objective and correct at all times. My number 1 favorite horror movie, because it really stuck with me, is Train to Busan.
Holy shit, I forgot about that movie.
And that's why I had to save zombies for later. Because when I think of a zombie movie, that is what I think of. Train to Busan.
That is a very, very good movie. Wow, I cannot believe I forgot about that. Wow.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay.
I love that movie. I've seen it once, and that's all I need to see it because it's just that good. That
movie is stressful. I'll read a little blurb that I wrote for it because I haven't read any of the other ones. So I'll read it for this one. This is how you do zombies correctly. This movie is stressful and scary and has very well-developed characters that you legitimately are sad for if and when they are killed. This movie has amazing logic and sticks to it. This is a movie I will never forget.
Korea is just killing it in the horror genre right now.
Yeah, they are. They've made some amazing ones.
Train to Busan is one I really, really enjoyed. Another one that I saw that I really, really enjoyed wasn't a movie, but a series. It is called All of Us Are Dead.
I feel like I've heard of that, but I haven't seen it.
It's a bunch of teenagers trapped in a high school while a zombie outbreak goes on.
Okay.
It's really entertaining at least. But yeah, no, Korea's killing it. Like Squid Game and all that other stuff that they're making there.
Oh, yeah. And Train to Busan isn't that old, but
No.
that movie is insanely stressful. And when I watched it with my wife, I mentioned it recently because we were talking to her mom about it, and she was even like that. The ending of the movie is there's a little girl that's singing Aloha Oi to prove that they're human, and it's just absolutely haunting.
Yeah.
But
Very, very good movie.
yes, I enjoy the hell out of that movie,
Yeah.
even though it's subtitled.
I mean, that's fine. You know, one of my movies was from Spain.
Yeah.
So for my number one movie, Adam probably already knows what this is because we've talked about it several times. We both really enjoy the movie. And it was also on his list. My number one movie is The Thing.
Yeah.
And it is just solely because of the practical effects. This is another movie that I've been watching since I was a little kid. I love Kurt Russell. I love Keith David. They're two of my favorite actors ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's my it's my favorite scary movie of all time.
Yeah.
I can remember watching that movie whenever I was about 10 or 11 on the Sci-Fi Channel and just being just unnerved at the end of it because you don't know if Childs is a thing or not. You know it's not Kurt Russell because he's wearing the same clothes, but it's like it's got such a somber ending too because it's like you know they're both gonna die regardless.
Yeah, I mean you're trapped in Antarctica.
Yeah,
So.
But yeah, great movie. I love the practical effects. Yeah, that's my number one.
Yeah, there's a scene in that movie that I would use to describe what a real jump scare is. That is the best way of doing a jump scare, and it's the correct way you should do it.
Is it the...
And that's no,
No?
not that one. It's the scene where they've taken the blood samples and they're putting electricity to it to see which one of them defends themselves.
Yes,
Because it is stressful as hell through that entire scene.
you know, the moment they figure out who it is, things are gonna pop off.
Yeah. And
you have no idea who it is.
you have no idea who it is. And it doesn't reveal itself until he puts it in there. And this is like after like 5 or 6 of them. He does a bunch.
Yeah.
He puts it in the blood vial, and then the blood vial jumps up out at him. And then where the blood came from, the guy the blood came from, is he starts fucking shaking and spraying stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to get away from him. That is how you do a jump scare correctly. Is that jumping out of the vial after all the buildup.
Yeah, and that movie is the build-up is part of what makes that movie. The build-up and the tension throughout the cast, because that movie is cast perfectly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that always got to me is they killed the fucking dogs. Holy hell, that was unexpected. But I said, it's a great movie. It's a haunting movie.
It's just its final form looks stupid.
It still gets a 10 out of 10 for me, baby.
Which is perfectly fine.
Yeah. Any honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions, yes, actually, because I had a few on my list that I probably shouldn't have erased, but I did anyway.
My only real honorable mention for like movies that I really, really liked, and I like this movie, or two of them. I've got two of them. One of them, just because it's weird and it cracks me up every time I watch it, just because it's so weird, is Slither.
Okay.
That was another James Gunn movie. He is so good at making just weird shit work. It's got Nathan Fillion, Emily, I don't remember her last name, or no, Elizabeth Banks is in it, and the guy who played Merle in The Walking Dead.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's a good movie, but it is weird. My other one, and if you're like a big into practical effects, you'll like this movie. As far as plot goes, not that great, but the practical effects are amazing, and it's a very small indie movie. It's called The Void.
The Void. Okay.
Yeah, very Lovecraftian-esque.
Okay.
It's about this cop who finds this guy on the side of the road, and he brings him to the hospital, and they get stuck in this hospital. They're surrounded by a cult and like weird weird shit just starts happening in the hospital. I would recommend it. Like I said, the plot's not really that great, but the practical effects are fucking awesome.
Okay,
Especially some of the creatures that show up.
That I had a couple of movies on the list that were more considered thrillers than horror, so I had to take them off, even though they could, in some ways, be kind of considered a horror. The first one was The Grey. I had on the list.
I remember talking about it.
Yeah. That movie was taken off because it's more of a thriller or a survival movie. Both of these are actually survival movies. The other one was a movie called Open Water.
That's a
seen
good
that?
one. That's
Yeah.
a good one too.
That was a shark movie where you never see a shark.
Yeah.
I watched that movie once, and that movie scared the hell out of me. And
That movie just made me sad.
yeah, it's very sad. But that was another movie I had on there. It was more survival or thriller than it was actually a horror movie. So I couldn't keep them on the list.
Right.
So those are our top 10, the most correct top 10 scary movies that have ever been put online. Anyone else's list that has said anything other than our top 10, they're wrong, and they need to correct it immediately.
No, but like we were saying, this is all based on our opinions. It is very subjective. If you don't like it, it's whatever. You can dislike. We really don't care. We would rather you like and subscribe. But, you know.
I was thinking, even with our two lists, like the only two that we actually had combined, that we had the same movie on our list were The Thing and Underwater.
Had I remembered Train to Busan, it probably would have been on my list, but it probably would have been like 8 or 9.
Yeah. Well, it's number 1 on my list.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah. It's a very good movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, with that being said, please remember to like and subscribe and, you know, create your own list. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, let's say create your own list. In the comments, in fact, create an entire list of top 10 horror movies.
Yeah, let's see what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
Like what everyone's favorites are.
Absolutely.